Welcome to the Book Faire podcast. My name is Anthony, and this week we have an interview with Mack Barnett and Carson Ellis, the author and illustrator behind a new adaptation of the classic fairy tale Rumpelstiltskin. Good morning, Mack. Good morning, Carson. How are you two doing today?
We're great. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Thank you guys so much for being here today. It's wonderful to have you. Can we start by just having you introduce yourselves and the book that we'll be discussing today? Let's start with Mack.
Sure, yeah. I'm Mack Barnett. I am a writer for children. And I should say my official title, I am also the National Ambassador for Young People's Literature. So this is a diplomatic mission that I am on this morning as well. I write all kinds of books for kids, but my favorite art form, I think, is the picture book. And so we're here because Carson and I have made a picture book together, a retelling of Rumpelstiltskin.
Right. And I am Carson Ellis. I am the illustrator of Rumpelstiltskin and a lot of other books. And I write some books too. Always picture books for kids. Yeah, I do a lot of illustration work, but my favorite thing is to make books for children.
And Carson, do you find yourself gravitating more towards writing or towards illustrating?
100% towards illustrating. And when I do write, I think the text is usually spare and built around the illustrations. I think I actually sort of start with the pictures typically and then figure out the pictures tell the story and then the text feels almost kind of auxiliary to it.
Can I just say that Carson is like a great writer and poet and has written some of my favorite picture books of the last 20 years. She is like one of the best writers we have. So
do you think I'm being modest?
I think you probably are being emotionally honest, but I just want to point out that you're a really good writer.
You are the best. Thank you. Thanks for saying so. Back at you.
And Mack, to give you your due credit as well, I want to ask about your role as the National Ambassador for Young People's Literature. What is that title? What does that entail? And how do you embody that? What are you doing with that title exactly?
Well, first of all, the title entails a lot of words, and that is how you know it's important. National Ambassador for Young People's Literature. That's 6 words, and a lot of people's titles only have 3 or 4 words. My job is, I think, to be both a champion of kids' books and the kids who read those books, but also each ambassador, I am the 9th, we get to choose a specific focus, something that we want to talk about for our 2-year term. And my focus is on the picture book. I love the picture book. I think it is one of the great literary forms. I think it deserves a place alongside the novel, poetry, short story, plays, and as like one of the great ways of telling stories and sharing ideas. But I don't think the picture book is really appreciated always. I think that people don't really know how they work and picture books. And then also they underestimate picture books because people underestimate kids. And they think that, kids aren't capable of understanding real art when I think we found just the opposite.
Amen.
And you said that picture books are underappreciated. Even I focus a lot on children's literature, and I find myself sometimes forgetting to focus on picture books. So I think I'm right there with you in understanding that they are an unappreciated art form. And between the two of you, Mack and Carson, writing primarily picture books, what is it about illustrated picture books that stands out to you, not just as a form of literature, but as a proper art form in itself?
I love picture books so much for so many reasons. I could go on and on about it, but I think for one thing, maybe the thing that drew me to them was just that you get to combine text and visual art in these sort of novel ways where they work together to tell a story. That's why I became a kids book maker, because I think that's neat. But now, a couple decades later, and after having had a couple kids, I also really think that it's incredible. They're kind of a kid's first introduction to prose and visual art, which feels very important. That feels like an honor to be the person that's making that for kids. And then also they provide these experiences for adult readers and kids together that are dynamic and creative and collaborative. And I feel like I can't think of that many other places in the world where adults and kids are sitting down together to sort of like read in this way where they're both bringing their very, very different experiences to the story, and learning so much about art and literature and each other in the process. I could go on, but I just think there's kind of nothing like them.
Yeah,
culturally.
They're these sort of magical things that are they're both this physical object, this art object that we really spend a lot of time working on. Carson is I will tell you, she is my favorite living artist. She is one of the great illustrators and painters alive right now. And here is this book full of art by Carson Ellis, words that I worked very hard on. We choose beautiful paper to print it on, and then we hand it over to kids. These are art objects that kids get to hold, clutch, chew on. There's very few things made so carefully that truly belong to kids. It's an object that is really theirs, but it is also this ephemeral thing, this performance that an adult gives for a child. And really, the picture book is made and remade every time it is read aloud.
And you say that a picture book is a performance given by an adult to a child. And I think that's really interesting because one of the great archetypes in media and in children's literature comes from this story, and that is the Rumpelstiltskin kind of mysterious, evil gremlin character. Can you talk a little bit about bringing this centuries-old story, this Brothers Grimm fairy tale? Can you talk about updating not really updating, but what you've done to present it to a new and modern audience?
So a big focus of ours was to make this story really sing in a picture book form, right? Because originally this was a story that was told out loud. We don't know for how long, but for centuries possibly. This was just a story people told out loud to each other, and because it was just such a good one that has jokes and scary parts. And then it's set down, written down by the Brothers Grimm with no pictures whatsoever, and we are trying to make it dance as a picture book and really like wring all of the drama and humor and emotion we can out of it using the form of the picture book. But you're right to call out that this mysterious guy at the center of it, Rumpelstiltskin. Very few stories are named for the villain. He is such a mysterious guy, and he is somebody I think we have been like wondering about and wrestling with for so long. It's been a lot of fun. Carson and I just spent the last week visiting elementary schools, reading this book out loud to kids. And then we just usually talk to these first, second, third graders for 25 minutes afterward about what Rumpelstiltskin's deal is. But as you always find out when you talk to elementary school kids about books, but especially fairy tales, they are doing real literary analysis of this thing.
And Carson, your perspective as an illustrator, taking something that's so steeped in tradition of oral storytelling, can you talk about what you've done to bring this to picture book form?
Well, I wouldn't say I did anything too novel with it. In fact, I did the opposite. I wanted it to feel sort of like a classic storybook and to kind of reference some of the 19th century illustrators that were illustrating old fairy and folk tales that I love so much. So the art is sort of set in the Middle Ages, and there's some Renaissance painting inspiration in there. But ultimately, I just wanted the art to look really nice. Like I wanted it to be beautiful and for kids to pore over the illustrations. but I also wanted it to feel really immersive, like you were in these sort of medieval spaces in the hall of a castle or in the bedchambers of a queen or in a forest. So I spent a lot of time thinking about kind of the spaces that these characters would be inhabiting.
And when it comes to any media written for young audiences, a lot of times there is a question of what is the moral of the story? And I'd like to hear your perspectives on this. What do you think even if it's not intentional, even if it's not a good or relevant moral, what do you think the meaning behind the story of Rumpelstiltskin is that young people can take away?
We don't care about morals.
Yeah, we really don't.
Yeah.
And we don't think this book has one.
I do think that there is a distinction between meaning and moral that is really important. Moral is telling the kid how to act and what to think, and that is not our job, and we don't write books like that, and I think we don't like books like that. I haven't liked those books since I was a kid. I don't want to when I'm sitting down to read a book, I want a story. I don't want somebody telling me what to do. But I think meaning, some truth about life, about existence, about what it means to be a person in the world. This book is rich with meaning, but meaning is created in collaboration between the storytellers and the audience. And I think that something we like about this book is there are all of these mysterious moments that we kind of give some opinions on and how we frame the story and how we draw things, but that it's up to the kid to bring their experience, their intelligence to the book and figure out what the story means.
Oh, I was just going to say, it doesn't seem to be a story with a moral, but it does seem to be kind of a great revenge tale. It's like a book full of villains, and everybody kind of gets theirs in the end, and the woman triumphs. And that's the kind of book I would have wanted to read as a kid. And I feel so strongly that kids should get to read not for their own edification, just like we are allowed to read things that don't edify us. They just entertain us.
I worked for a children's theater company for about 12 years before I started doing this podcast because the pandemic forced me to look at my career to find something that was stable. And one of the shows we did that was for theater for the very young audiences, where we would go to daycare centers and kindergarten classes, was an original adaptation of Rumpelstiltskin. And the three morals that I took away from that different people took away from it was, firstly, don't make promises you can't keep. And that comes from the father and from the daughter, who offered jewelry and the child in exchange for Rumpelstiltskin spinning the yard. The second was just simply don't lie, because the dad was just outright lying. And the third one was the one that I always got as a child hearing this story, which was don't celebrate too soon. Because, as you said, you don't get books named after the villain. And I think that's why the story is called Rumpelstiltskin, in my opinion, is because the moral is don't celebrate too early, because it will be your folly.
I think it is one of the funniest parts of the story, and it happens at one of the darkest moments.
Yeah.
That Rumpelstiltskin has it all sealed up, and he decides to sing a song about how clever he is, and the last line of the song is, "And my name is Rumpelstiltskin." But honestly, I think that I just admire that as a joke as well. I think that it's just good storytelling, and is often the case. If you tell a story about a liar, if it's good storytelling, there's going to be some consequences for those lies. Maybe bad consequences, maybe good consequences, but you want to follow how a lie plays out. In this case, it doesn't play out very well, but it plays out in an honest way. As for the middle one about not making promises you can't keep, I don't know what I think about. What would I do in that moment? She's faced with death. She is in an impossible situation. And I think that it's very hard for all of us to conceive of the future, and the future that she is having to think about then. When Rumpelstiltskin says, "If you become queen, give your first child to me," she has to think that I am not going to be a miller's daughter, but I will be a regent and I will have a kid. Yeah, sure, I will sign that up because I'll get to live another night. And I don't know. I forgive anybody for making that decision. She would die otherwise.
She would die otherwise. And nobody knows how much they're going to like their kids until they have them.
That's so true. We love our kids, though. Our kids, our individual kids.
We don't have kids together.
From our individual families.
And the second time we have to clarify.
And to finish out this interview, I like to ask this question to all guests. Hopefully we have enough time to get a nice final button to our interview. And that is the same question I ask all guests is, Carson, Mack, let's start with Carson, obviously, because I want to go one at a time. Carson, how do you see yourself in the work that you do as an illustrator and as an author?
How about I'll tell you how I see myself in the work I do. Maybe that's more what you're asking. And I see, like I guess everybody probably does, all of my amalgamated like interests and passions and obsessions and personality stuff in all the art that I do. In the case of Rumpelstiltskin, I see my love of the woods and the forest. I see my passion for medieval stuff in here, and my love for kind of laborious painting, like painstaking art making.
And Mack, how do you see yourself and the work that you do as a writer?
I think that I think of myself as a children's writer, and I think that the job of the children's writer is just the same as the job of the writer. It's to tell the truth about the world and to try to do it in a beautiful way. But the children's writer has a special additional obligation, and that is to tell the truth about what it means to be a kid in the world, which is different. It's a different truth. Kids lead different lives. They experience things differently. Their brains work differently. Doorknobs are at different heights for them than they are for us. It's harder to get into chairs. You need to be attuned to their truth. And the children's writer must always be on the kids' side. And so that is how I see my special obligation as a writer.
That was a good answer. That made more sense than my answer.
I think your answer made sense as an answer to a different question.
Cool.
Thank you. That was an interview with Mack Barnett and Carson Ellis. Their latest book, Rumpelstiltskin, is available now. You can learn more about Mack and Carson at mackbarnett.com and carsonellis.com, respectively. If you appreciate the work being done on the show, there are a number of ways to show your support. First, you can like, comment, or follow wherever you are currently listening to help push the show out to new listeners. Second, you can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky at Book Faire Pod. Lastly, you can follow the show on Patreon at patreon.com/thebookfair. Following is free and there are no posts hidden behind a paywall. Of course, the best way to help the Book Faire podcast grow is simply to share it with a friend, an educator, or a young reader in your life. Thank you so very much for listening, and as always, I'll talk to you next time.